So you're interested in having XRP in your portfolio, but don't really know how much you should have. Having the right amount of XRP in 2025 could be the difference between just liking crypto and it changing your life. I'm Brett at CryptoGX, and in this video, we'll break down how much XRP you might want to hold in 2025. We'll also go over why banks and big companies are finally paying attention, how its past price action jumps stack up against Bitcoin and stocks, simple ways to size your allocation, which basically allocation is the size of the amount of money that you're going to put into this asset, and the biggest risks that you should watch out for. Stick around because by the end, you'll know exactly where XRP could fit into a beginner-friendly portfolio and why even a small, well-planned position might be a game changer. So let's start off with some attributes of XRP and how it fits into the broader economy. The XRP ledger is an open blockchain, and it moves about 1,500 transactions each second and locks them in about 3 to 5 seconds. This is way faster than minutes or days that old payment systems have, like in kind of banking system currently. This speed makes XRP a very perfect bridge currency. Banks can change dollars into XRP, basically fire it across the globe, and then switch it back into pesos or yen or whatever currency that they're dealing with without having to kind of park their cash in different places all across the world. Ripple, the company that started XRP, calls this on-demand liquidity, or ODL. It already gives real-time payouts for firms from Europe to Africa, slashing fees and wait times. Big names are now paying attention. The World Economic Forum tagged Ripple as a top innovator in cross-border finance, and central banks in Bhutan and Saudi Arabia have tested Ripple's rails for their own digital money pilots. Today, 50 plus major partners from remittance apps to tier 1 banks are using or trialing XRP for settlement, locking in its spot as the link that ties crypto to traditional finance. All of this is really funneling into and giving reason for the importance of XRP, as well as how much you should really consider to put in your portfolio based on these factors and how important it is in the kind of whole global system. And looking at the numbers, the real world use has already shown up in XRP's price. Now, if we look at the historical price of XRP, we can see all of the movements that it's had over the course of its history. A really important move when looking at this particular chart is its inception back in about 2013, all the way to this huge jump in January of 2018. As you can see here, during 2017, it was trading at less than a penny. And then by January of 2018, it was over $3, an incredibly huge jump from that previous year. Its peak here in 2018 shows $3.36. This would mark its first all-time high. After that, there was a very long slump made worse by the SEC lawsuit. This kept it below $1 for years, as you can see right here, trading between 2018 and about 2021. Then from November 2024 to January 2025, the token roared back 255%. As you can see here, this gigantic jump when Bitcoin started to pop off in November of 2024. Bitcoin's gains were far smaller when it comes to percentage-wise, but this is very common. The altcoins typically have a larger percentage gain because they're much more volatile. So I'm sure this sparks the question, where could XRP's price go next? I've made other videos on XRP, so definitely subscribe, check out our channel for all the XRP information there. But just to simplify, if you look at this markets article right here, they're putting a cautious band of about $5 to $10 for the peak price during 2025 if adoption keeps rising. There's lots of articles and lots of people making predictions out there. As you can see on Finance Magnates, they're predicting about $8 in 2025, and other places like Forbes are having a lot more of a bullish outlook. They're predicting somewhere between $10 and $15. I realize this is a wide range, but even the midpoints here point to at least a 2 to 4x jump from today's roughly $2.50 range. When you're thinking about price though, don't forget about market cap. This is the total value of all of the coins. XRP's market cap compared to Bitcoin would still be lower even if XRP was at $10. This leaves a little bit of room for upside for XRP. But obviously the main thing to consider here, and why I'm pointing out market cap, is that any of these altcoins pretty much guaranteed not to exceed Bitcoins, just because of what we know and adoption and the general consensus of Bitcoin as a store of value versus these other coins. Now, something crazy could happen and a new coin could take over, but it hasn't happened in the entirety of Bitcoin's history. So let's just make those kind of assumptions for at least the moment. XRP has dropped 30+% in a single day after a big escrow release and market jitters and lots of different events. The history shows that highs can be huge, but the pullbacks can also be pretty brutal. Knowing both sides sets the stage for smart allocation, which we'll go over next. So after seeing XRP soar and sink and soar again, the big question is, how big of a slice of your total investment should ride on XRP? Most financial professionals those tend to tell you to keep your crypto portfolio pretty small. And then obviously within that, they're probably going to tell you to keep your altcoin portfolio even smaller within that. A survey in 2024 found that about 90% of advisors plan to have 1 to 5% in crypto of their entire investment portfolio, with 30% of the investors being at about a 2% allocation and another 20% picking up to 5%. For a curious beginner who has an example portfolio of $5,000, putting just 1% of that entirely into XRP would be just $50 of your entire portfolio. Obviously is enough to stay interested without losing any sleep over, because it's not a very big amount. However, if you want XRP to actually move the needle, many beginners are aiming for more like 5% and understanding that the swings in the price could be sharp. At that level, a 5x move, which is well within past crypto cycles, could turn your slice into 25% of your whole portfolio. This is great upside, while the other 95% of your portfolio stays diversified. True believers, but not quite crypto maxis, who believe in crypto but have a diversified portfolio of stocks and all sorts of things, will push past, 10%. And that's where daily price jolts can feel like a roller coaster. Only go further than that if you're comfortable watching the value jump or drop really, really fast. Or if you're just fine not watching it and holding for a long, long time. And basically, you're not going to be worried if the price goes one way or the other. Now, how does this allocation compare to other asset classes? Well, in 2024, Bitcoin climbed roughly 135%, while the S&P 500 managed to do about 25%, with most of the gains being driven by just a few tech giants. Now, XRP, on the other hand, in late 2024, about November, this burst crushed both of those gains. And yet, its biggest pullbacks also outpaced stocks. So think of XRP as a high gear lever, small allocation with big potential torque. Basically, you want to have a small amount because you want to be in the game, but it's going to pull back really hard. The S&P 500 and Bitcoin are not going to pull back nearly as hard. Bitcoin still will pull back hard too, but the S&P 500 is going to be your safest bet in comparison. That's why you want to have a large majority of your portfolio generally in safer, less volatile assets. Now, finally, let's look at a really fun benchmark. This is the distribution of XRP based on the top accounts that hold it. Now, as you can see right here, Ripple owns the top 8 wallet accounts that hold XRP. It's based on their escrow accounts. Don't worry about this. If you want to know more about XRP, check out the other videos on the CryptoGX channel. But the interesting stat here is that owning about 2,504 XRP, which if you multiply that by about 2, that's about $5,000, maybe a little bit more. This will put you in the top 10% of all of the wallets in the entire world. So you basically be a 10%er if you own that much XRP. And keep in mind, there are only around 6.5 million active XRP accounts worldwide. So basically the maximum number of people, if everybody owned one XRP wallet, that'd be 6.5 million people compared to the 8 billion people that are on the planet. Now, obviously XRP is a little bit more than $2 at the moment, so it's probably around $7,000 for that entire stack that we just talked about. This is hardly billionaire money, but it's enough to stand out if XRP's use in global payments keeps to snowball. Keep this in mind when you're sizing up how much XRP you're actually going to be buying. And with that in mind, don't follow hype, have conviction, have knowledge, and understand the assets that you're putting into your portfolio. But obviously there are going to be gains and there are going to be losses, and hopefully the losses are unrealized and the gains are realized. So keep that in mind. So at the end of the day, what does this all even mean? Where are we going to end up with our allocation? Even with a smart sized bag, you still need to have open eyes because XRP isn't risk-free. Regulations can cause a problem or they can add to positive sentiment. Ripple had a huge win this year against their SEC lawsuit. US courts say XRP isn't a security when people trade it on normal exchanges, but the company still paid the fines in relation to all that. But essentially they won this case, or at least it got dismissed. At the time, that was a big plus for XRP, especially when it comes to the price. The next thing you want to keep in mind is supply pressure. Ripple holds a giant stash of XRP. This is that escrow account that we were talking about before, and basically they unlock up to 1 billion of that from escrow each month. At the moment, it seems like they're burning XRP, which is helping with the kind of supply and bringing up the price, but you have to follow along. They can kind of do whatever they want with it, and they tend to try to manage the price in a positive way. Obviously, that's their goal. And the last thing, of course, is normal crypto swings. XRP's dropped 30% in a single day after bad news or big unlocks, so that's what you got to consider. This is also why an XRP plan should fit your stomach for all of these wild moves. In general, as we discussed before, 1 to 5% is a typical allocation of your entire portfolio for crypto as a whole. Within that, typically often do about 50% Bitcoin and 50% altcoins. But if you're a crypto maxi like like me, you can have a much higher stack depending on your involvement in the market, your knowledge of where these crypto cycles go, and the timing of them. And the last thing, which is really important, is your investment horizon. So if you're looking for a quick buck and just to have a quick pump, XRP is not going to be your play. Meme coins will be, and those are very risky, and you're more likely to lose all of your money. So when it comes down to it, your XRP portfolio for 2025 should probably be pretty hefty in my opinion, because I really think XRP has a lot of movement to go. I think that $10 projected price is probably more likely based on the fact that we're currently at about 2.5, and Bitcoin still has a lot of time left in this year. So keep an eye on the rest of 2025. We're looking at about October-ish for a peak, depending on who you talk to. So at this moment, I have a pretty hefty stack, and I'm curious to see what you guys think about what you're going to put into your portfolio. Let me know in the comments below. If you're ready to get started and want some XRP, I put some links in the description for Coinbase and Crypto.com, where you'll get $50 in crypto just for signing up with those links. And if you want to get into meme coins, I also left a link to MoonShot where you can claim some free meme coins when you sign up. If you learned something new or just enjoyed the video, make sure to hit the like button and hit subscribe if you want to stay tuned for all things crypto. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next one.